Buongiorno a tutti.
Good morning. Welcome to the Beyond Digital event. We are very glad to have you here today, and we want to welcome all those attending this day, which is during which we will discuss digitization. And we want to welcome all those who are following the event, the streaming of the event. Today we want to have an open discussion that goes beyond rhetoric, the myths of digitization. This is the challenge we have decided to face, take up, and digitization is something which is affecting, influencing, impacting our world. So we thought we could discuss our vision. Then there is another transformation which is underway, that is sustainability, new ways that brings about new ways of producing and organizing events in a way which is eco-friendly and cares about recycling. So also the reception desk, we have decided to have one made of recycled material. We are using recycled material for paper at the event, and then also emissions and offsetting emissions of the travel we have faced to be here today. So let's watch a short video that will explain how events are organized in a different way by Maire Tecnimont. Well, let's now start our discussion on digital transformation. So our company has been discussing, analyzing how the world is changing around us. Outside, you will find the new issue of our Evolve magazine, which is a magazine we publish and where we write about topics, what the company is doing, and where you can read about topics which are linked to today's event. So let's talk about digitization, how this process is changing our way of being, working, and so on. We want to want you to watch a journey made of music.
We always aim at the final result. It's our DNA. We go beyond our limits. Because digital transformation is reshaping the entire ecosystem. We go beyond technologies. Innovation calls for skilled and open-minded people to spark the change. Every single person can make a difference. We go beyond storytelling. We turn ideas into reality. We turn change into growth. This is why we go beyond digital.
Okay. Let's have a look at today's agenda. So, the event has been organized together with the Boston Consulting Group as partners. So I'd like to call to the floor Mr. Guidara, Marketing Business Development Manager of BCG. Francesco, so it will be, so today will be intense. So we will listen to, interesting presentations, points of view, and then we will also discuss what Carlo was saying. We will have a roundtable discussion. We will, go back to the concept of doers. So we want to see how this digitization is used in a corporate context on a daily basis. Thank you, Francesco. So we will have some speeches and also roundtable discussion, and so we will have a non-conventional discussion on digitization processes, especially as far as our sector industry is concerned. So I'd like to start with the Maire Tecnimont chairman and founder, Fabrizio Diamato. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you, Giovanni. Thank you, Andrea, Raffaele. I'd like to thank you all for being here. So it is a period where we are doing a lot. There are two fundamental pillars, as Carlo was saying. So there is sustainability, all that is green, eco-friendly, the company of the future. If we neglected this fact, it would not be right. We are working for this. And then digitization, which is another important aspect. I'd like to start to open today's event by saying that it is important to look at the various aspects of digitization. It is both a challenge and an opportunity because there are the two facets. So industries are impacted by many challenges, and there are opportunities. As an entrepreneur, apart from the many things that can happen, that have happened, I think what is important is to have a distributed entrepreneurship approach. So we have to work all together to adopt this entrepreneurial approach, all of us. So what does it mean within the organization? So we have to reinvent the way we work at all levels. So we all have to work together to cooperate. So there is no one-size-fits-all solution, no predefined solution. And today we'll see how in a context which is full of discontinuity, sometimes forecasts are overcome and sometimes disproved, because this is what change is all about. So we have to take risks as entrepreneurs. We know that this is key to what we do, taking decisions when uncertainty surrounds us. For example, the next speaker, Raffaele, is a counselor to the Lombardy region, Mr. Cattaneo. I'd like to thank him for what he's doing here. Then we'll have President of the CONI Association, he will talk about this digitization, how it is impacting sports. And we will also it will also tell us about the next Winter Olympics involving Milan and Cortina. So I think that sports could be a good example of how we have achieved the results through digitization, all the tools that make up digitization, then the Dean of Lewis University, Mr. Principe, and then he will share with us his point of view on new technologies, what is needed to develop new ideas. I am I'm looking forward to listening to what he has to say. We have cooperated in the past. We have started some partnerships, and then our managing director, Mr. Folgero, will give us an overview of what the group is doing, how the group is interpreting in practice digitization, which is not, just a word. It is easy to talk about, just talk about digitization. We want to implement it. And then the roundtable discussion that will be, coordinated by Mr. Solari, and BCG will approach the issue from a technical viewpoint. Let's say we talk about organizational models, open cooperation models, and so on and so forth. Going back to our industry, oil and gas industry, engineering, and so on, these industries have been heavily impacted by these trends, and the whole supply chain is certainly facing the challenges of digitization, and at the same time the rigidity, in a way, lack of flexibility of the traditional industrial models. We are pushing a lot here. We are also finding good response from our customers. Maire, Tecnimont is, betting on this challenge. We want to be more efficient and more effective in our processes, and we want to, certainly control costs and improve external output, because this is the result we're interested in. We are a company which is made up of brain and a lot of technical skills. The combination of these technologically evolved processes generates growth, which is most important for us. So we want to be leaders in the digitization process, especially in our industry, and we are general contractors, and we want to lead these coordinated action along the whole entire supply chain. This is what we want to do. We want to involve all the stakeholders, because without their support, we cannot bring about real transformation. So we want to promote much more flexible technological platforms, integrate the best platforms for our customers, thus creating the best ecosystem. An ecosystem that involves everybody, including universities, the academic world. This is essential. We have done this. We have created the green cluster within our group. We have decided to create our own reality, let's say. We want, so as by cooperating with the external world, to have access to this green world based on an open innovation concept, as Professor Principe will better explain. We are focusing on the big data, data analysis, the digital twin concepts, and artificial intelligence, robotics. It is a paradigm shift. I think this is inevitable. This is what we have to do, and we are really focused on that. So it is not just words. We want to make it become a real competitive lever, driver. So digital transformation is a mix of needs and challenges and opportunities. So some days ago, I was invited at the Lewis University. I talked with some students, and among the many questions they posed me, one struck me particularly. That is, somebody asked, what is the roadmap, your digital roadmap as a company? Why have you finalized an acquisition? Why have you acquired a protomation? I then realized that this is one of the priorities of young people. They are thinking of these aspects, so they are analyzing our processes from the point of view of training and final solutions. So we will be able to improve our optimized resources to increase our productivity by accelerating, improving our abilities, our skills, operational skills as well. So what we are doing together with our supply chain, allows us to offer our customers, our clients, a more innovative offering, a more efficient offering, because then all these is important because it improves efficiency. I don't want to take up much more of your time. I just want to tell you something on innovation, something I heard last Saturday. I was taking part at the Mind inauguration, and Professor Vincentelli, an Italian person, who attended Milan Polytechnic, graduated there, now is a professor at Berkeley University. He was explaining talking about innovation, and he used the truffle metaphor. And so truffles, you find truffles under earth, they're underground. So if you don't look for them, you will never find them. So the two worlds are, so there are enterprises, the enterprise world, which is looking for truffles, and sometimes meets universities, the academic world, the research world, which without the support of enterprises would not develop and create innovation. So enterprises are like truffle dogs. So you have to look for truffles, not eat the whole of all of the truffles, because you have to share them with the others. So it was a nice metaphor to talk about innovation. So this cooperation between the enterprise world and the academic world is important, and we are demonstration, testament to this, to the importance of this cooperation. So Maire Tecnimont is the result of cooperation made by Montecatini with Mr. Professor Natta, was working at the Milan University, invented plastics, but did invent plastics, but without the support, financial support of a company like Montecatini, he would not have ended up with this big innovation, especially as far as industrial implementation is concerned. So I hope that this cooperation will help us find a new Professor Natta for green chemistry of the future. Thank you very much for your attention.
Grazie.
Thank you very much, Fabrizio D'Amato. Yes, we were mentioning sustainability and digitization, so I'd like to now, take this opportunity to call on Raffaele Cattaneo, the councillor of the Lombardy region, for his best greetings. Thank you very much. Good morning. What a pleasure to accept Fabrizio D'Amato's invitation to be here. I won't be able to stay all of the day because we have a meeting upcoming, but I wanted to be here because I truly believe that what lies ahead, the time we still have ahead, and the goal is 2050, that's the target over the next 3 decades, requires champions who understood what is the challenge about, and that translate that into facts. And Maire Tecnimont is one of those champions. So I appreciate very much what you do, because I see in you the possibility of, a turnaround, which we all need. The change is made of a number of factors, quite humbly, but I want to share this, why not, with you. Now, this is a recap, the highlights of what I've seen over a year and a half as a councillor in the Lombardy region with a long track experience as a public official. first and foremost, what are the drivers of the kind of change of the timeline ahead of us? Two changes I see, and I believe that you all agree. One is digitization and sustainability. The two pillars, the milestones, which we will be building our new paradigm of growth, economic and social development model over the 3 decades ahead, are these two pillars. On these two, we need to really build a scaffold, which is innovation. If you innovate and build products and services that are built on digitization and sustainability, you will get the key into winning the challenge of the future. Whether you like it or not, now this is objective, whether you believe or don't believe, like climate change, which has been abused, or the hyperbolic growth in consumption of matter, material, of feedstock, as they say. Fabrizio uses this word. Since the 70s to date, it's been rising threefold, and, faster than this. Look at the population on Earth, from prehistory to date. You will see that the chart shows that there has been a spiraling growth of the population growth rate. And the planet is what it is. We don't have any other bigger planet. Loss of biodiversity, structural factors, whether you like it or not, you have to come to grips with that. And it really takes a quantum leap in the way we address our economy. We produce, we manage, we work, and also we live. So it seems to me that what is needed, a must, is really to consider this change and invest in it. If you understand, ahead of time that these are going to be the future drivers, you'll be able to prosper and grow with the new system and development paradigm waiting for us. The second idea I'd like to share with you is what we need to build is a development model, not a model of lack of growth. Lack of growth is only, can only be unhappy. I've never met anybody without growth feeling happy. So this is quite an abstract illusion. We need to, in fact, build sustainable development model, a digital development model. How do you do that? How can you build and create digitization and sustainability? Well, it takes a top-down, or does it take a bottom-up kind of change? Is it a change that comes from the government, from the law, or do you do that by increasing the level of awareness and changing the behavioral attitudes of millions of individuals and of corporations? I truly, deeply believe that this change is only possible if it takes place bottom up. If a law were enough, or an emperor, edict to generate a change, well, it would be nice, but it's not like that. Of course, it takes good laws, and we, together with Fabrizio, we went through the huge, waste in circular economy, making it to be changed quite impossible. But we work on this, and then the regulation was changed. So I'm not saying that good laws are not needed or useless. No, institutions will have to play their role. But this is not a change which will be driven by institutions and in politics. It will be driven by our society and by companies, corporations. In fact, the kind of innovation that was mentioned before can only come from the corporate world. There was a time, and recent, that governments used to be the drivers of innovation. Think about John Fitzgerald Kennedy's choice to go up to the moon, and how much the military has been a driver of innovation. But it's no longer so. It's a time when change is pushing power down to the grassroots, and so we need citizens, people, families, households, and companies to be the stars, the players every day. What has changed the management of the waste disposal system? Well, of course, institutional decisions have done something, but 70% of the recycling was done by who? By a change of mindset of individual households and people, individuals, and who has built the digitization which we use, the sharing economy. Well, thousands and thousands of startups, done by young entrepreneurs who created new apps and changed the scenario. We are experiencing this change. It comes from the grassroots, but they need champions with the right size for the right investment. For instance, as far as energy goes, from renewables, we all seen the climate energy national plan and scheme based on the United Nations Sustainable Development criteria. 30% will come from renewables by 2030, and by 2050 we will have to get this number up to 100%. How can we do that? Well, I have meetings with my people to understand how to do this in the Lombardy region. It takes a mix of strategies. Let me just give you a number. In photovoltaic energy production, over the next 10 years, we'll have to realize photovoltaic fields which are equivalent of 4,000 football fields. Does this look like easy to do or feasible? Not really. It'll take another leap, and it's only possible through innovation. Who will manage to create a kind of innovation so that hydrogen becomes a sustainable option, feasible option? Those who will do that, obviously, will provide a major contribution to this policy. This is no abstraction. I truly believe that this is so, and it takes champions to be able to do this. One final comment that I'd like to share with you. Let's avoid making this mistake. That is thinking that digitization and sustainability are, our final objectives. What they are instruments, tools, instrumental. The core goal is man, individuals, people. Eliot once said they are trying to pull out from the internal and external darkness, building perfect systems so that you don't need it to be good enough. The temptation is, especially in politics, to build a perfect system so that freedom is no longer needed. This is a major temptation, and sometimes it applies to corporations. We need to be bright enough to understand that the final goal of all this change, where we will be the first great players, is a system where man will still be at the core, at the heart, still capable of expressing his talents and capabilities. Unless we do that and excite, and enhance this freedom, people will reject and turn down this change. And we're seeing proofs of this out in the street. Everybody should be and feel part of it. If we build a model of excluded, cast out people, the model will not work. Thank you very much.
Grazie all'assessore Cattaneo che ci ha ricordato proprio come...
Thank you very much for reminding us that all these things will be practical results with everybody's contribution. We all have a role to play, as the title of our magazine. Everybody will have to contribute to changing the system. Now, we will hear another industry, sports, digitization, team work. They come together. So I'd like to call on Giovanni Malago, the president of CONI. Please.
Buongiorno a tutti.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Fabrizio Di Amato. Thank you very much for this invitation. I believe that you know how, friends I feel with him. We have a strong friendship, and I came back to this building. I know this building very well. I've seen so many changes in the building with this active space, which has been turned into a wonderful multifunctional room. As we say, I feel home. I feel in my family. I'm really happy and proud of being here, because I've been following, the change of this company since the start, since its inception. Fabrizio said that we start from the origins of the Montecatini way back in the 50s, and in the meantime, he has provided a major disruption, a transformation to the building with great courage. Which sometimes tends to be forgotten or neglected, but with a vision, most of all. Being here to address these issues shows that, companies, just like in championships or sports associations and teams, that they could be the strongest in the world, but then, you have to start again, all over again, with new challenges behind the corner, with new bids and new contracts. And you know very well, as Mr. Cattaneo, the councillor, said, I have appreciated very much what he said, when he said that this is a goal, but at the center, at the core, we will always find human beings, starting from the group, from Maire, Tecnimont, but our community, our society, they will all have to allow for objective realities, state of things which are being identified by magic words like digitization, buzzwords, sustainability. They have become a mantra. Councillor Cattaneo, I want to tell you that I am very happy also to be a stakeholder, the founder of this wonderful project, Milano Cortina 2026. This is getting really to the crux. So what I'm saying, we have won a challenge that if someone may have, seemed sort of taken for granted. Milan versus Stockholm, Cortina versus Ore, 600 kilometers north to the Swedish capital. The negotiation between Italy and the rest, and the appeal we possess vis-a-vis Swedish way of doing things and climate situation. No, this is not fair to say. But don't forget one thing. You should know that Sweden, which is one of the four largest giants in the winter sports or disciplines, whether on ski or on ice, the others being Norway, Canada, and Russia. Well, they have for long been leading and in the forefront the ranking of these sports, winter sports. But, it's paradoxical, but Sweden has never hosted a winter Olympic game. Never, ever. The only one that did it was in 1908, but it was a kind of Olympic Games and sports on summer sports. And Sweden was, taking its eighth attempt. And the other 7 obviously had proved unsuccessful. We, by contrast, 13 years ago, we have hosted the Winter Olympic Games in Turin, in Italy. So with that, this is to, tell you how complex this challenge has been and is. It was won for a number of reasons, Not nice to tell you about these things, but a little, percentage, a little amount, it touches on the exact theme and topic of this most wonderful initiative, today's event. And this is it. We knew that on certain things that we were, and we still are, better than the others, But we also know that regarding the environment, sustainability, and also digitization, we were lagging behind. We knew that. So the entire dossier, material since the beginning was prepared, planned, developed by heavily investing on these 2 topics, these 2 themes. We couldn't afford having a gap of credibility within the international community, which is not really related to the individual vote, but they have an impact on these procedures, like 1,000 of other factors, understandably. All of the stakeholders, for once, the companies, the organizations that invest in this wonderful circus. If you look at the backdrop of the partners, as I like them, the International Olympic Committee, the last one was MBB, Milano Cortina, again, meeting. The vision was very interesting because 1,700,000 visitors are expected. So 50,000 of these, approximately, will not be accommodated in the quote-unquote traditional categories of accommodation.
Ed investono sul nostro mondo. Ma se voi...
They will invest in our world. Of the first top multinational 20 multinational of the world, 50% or 40% are part of the CIO. Why? Because the sponsor, well, in sports, obviously, is by far the most popular one. If you look at, pick up one parameter, but the first 10, 20, 30 TV broadcasts, programs of the past 10 years, for instance, 99% are sports-driven or sports-focused. Whatever is related to the social networks, well, you'll understand that the major players and actors in this world are the modern heroes of our time. And increasingly, at any level, whatever level you take, whether it's the social, digital world or the real world, you will see that the testimonials of any brand or any corporations, it's them, men, women of the past, of the present, of the Olympic or Paralympic worlds. A bit less maybe the representatives of other categories, as was the case in the past. One of the key points of this victory, it wasn't me saying this, but one of my eminent colleagues that has turned upside down the rumors in the morning's presentation, which was much more institutional, but the afternoon was really decisive on the vote, was a video, a film. I apologize really with you because we decided not to share it with you because the CIO has the rights to show the video. But, I'll pass this on to Fabrizio, this message, because it's beautiful. It's a video, a film. It's the quintessence, the best of the best about the willpower of investing in the digital world. There is no tradition, sounds, colors, images. They're all blending and matching, modernizing to the extreme our candidature. It was a very courageous, brave choice, again, because our colleagues, they had a video, Nata, Nobel Prize laureate for chemistry in the 50s. Well, they had their own testimonials, the president of the foundation of the Nobel Prize Award. My God, I mean, a lot, not negligible. We couldn't find something equivalent, but we decided to do something different. What we decided to do was, to step aside and to load everything on for girls between 2021, Ariana Fontana, Michela Boioli, Sofia Goggi, and Elisa Confortola. She's 16, and she won the gold medal of the Youth Olympic Games. Imagining what they could become in 2026, because if we won June the 24th, it's because we tried to project further on, the image of our world, our society, the places 7 years from now, ahead of time. So really fast forwarding. So imagining what these initiatives could look like. Maybe somebody could think that that was a prehistory in the future. Well, sports is really a forerunner on everything. First, the CEO has inaugurated in those days, in the presence of heads of state, the president of the Swiss Confederation, the new headquarters. I don't know whether I'll do it, I'll be able to do it, but I'll do my best to stand next to Fabrizio and Roberto and accompany them to visit this new site, headquarters. The first, maybe not the only one, but the first which is not simply compliant with the plastic-free recycling procedures and practices or anything that relates to a new energy world. But it's also paper-free. It is only solely digital. The professional activity of about 650 people working within the CIO, which is a wonderful Babel tower of all ethnical origins and populations. This is the kind of direction we're taking. Congratulations to my president, Thomas Bach, gold medal in '76. He was farsighted in 2013 when he was elected in Buenos Aires. He, presented the 2020 agenda that has really changed the face of our world and the world of corporations. And what did he say? It says we can no longer afford having candidatures where we are asking for investments that are not based on the legacy, the heritage after the event, and do without them. This is no longer affordable. The cathedrals in the desert, as they say. Olympic Games are over. How do you keep them up? The business plan has a mismatch. There is a management problem there. No. What he said, by contrast, was, first of all, with the new norms, he supported an argument. Let's avoid concentrated everything in one single place, because, there is no other city in the world, not even a Chinese city's a megalopolis of 20, 25 million, that at the same time in the same area will have an Olympic village, living with a place for 80,000 places and seats for athletics, for instance. So by conjuring up the concept of digitization, he wanted to put forth a norm, a regulation which was decisive. Let's elasticize, make the candidacy for Olympic Games elastic, as much elastic and flexible as possible. So we have got into this wedge, this groove. We couldn't even think of being competitive. We had a ridiculous budget over the prior editions, but nonetheless, we have developed a dossier where we will go to Valtellina, Predazzo, Cortina, starting from working on the argument that the open ceremony and the headquarters and the Olympic family will obviously be accommodated in Milan. Ter Silva is the world temple of biathlon. We decided to build something similar. So we were brave enough to present this plan. And somehow we have customized, tailor-made a solution to our way of winning and being winners. And I'm very proud of this. My press office, knows that in Italy, 62% of companies in Italy have rates, indices. They have a level of digitization which is exceedingly low, whilst the highest one is only 3% of them. So since we have worked so far as a team, a major team, I really hope that these themes might be solved only by working as a team. Even in this building, like in any other companies that you stand for, with vested interest, if everybody here is convinced that this is right. Of course, you know, the theme here is also communication, training, education. And some generations may be a bit more resistant to accepting all of this, I understand, because they believe that they have always been doing the best by using other systems which go against what I am standing here to address right now. This is what the country should be addressing. I'm very happy that Milano Cortina, this wonderful brand, will also be a testimonial in this sense. And we're seeing companies, of course, I'm not allowed to mention the names, are very interested in what we have done because they stand for excellence. Just like this company, I'm very proud of having been part of this path of success story. Thank you very much.
Grazie a Giovanni Malagò.
I'd like to thank Giovanni Malagò. He has touched upon, topics which are quite cross-sectoral distribution. So as a key factor of our success, it is also something which is common to us, that is distribution involving everybody. So we now have Pier Roberto Folgiero, Managing Director of the group. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today's event, we'll try and tell you what are the false myths of this digital trend. We have already listened to the opinions of the previous speakers who have already said that in order to work properly, then these digital trends have to be supported. So when Fabrizio talks about entrepreneurship is credible, he's been working for 40 years in this industry, so he's been an entrepreneur for 40 years. The Chancellor explained that besides entrepreneurship, also social change is an aspect. So a bottom up approach is important, so changes to start from the bottom. This is something we have a little forgotten, and it is, so his contribution is being very clear, very straightforward. And then Giovanni explained the third thing, talked about the third thing that you need in order to use the digital, to make digital, to have successful digital trends, which is the ability to organize things. And Giovanni told us, explained how they were able to organize things so as to, win the challenge of the Winter Olympics, and also elegance. There is then the elegant touch, the Italian touch, which has contributed when we do things. Italy and Maire Tecnimont does things. Elegance is important also, apart from money, and money talks, of course. However, I will I hope I will convince you with my presentation. First of all, I want to talk about technology so we can leave it behind. Apparently, digital stems from technology. But also the ability to change, to organize things is important part of. So it starts from technology. So what has happened over the last few years, and what has happened triggered change. So sensors cost a little, so you can assemble a compressor and a sensor, and it costs a little. Also, complementarity costs a little. And you can connect get a SIM card with a connector, and also computing power is cheaper. The compressor with a sensor and a SIM card can interface with other similar compressor which gather data somewhere else in Carolina, for example, counts vibrations one way or the other and tells us, processing big data, when the compressor will break down, so we can intervene before it happens. So costs has decreased for SIM cards and infinite, so endless computing ability power. So let's add then mature technologies like augmented technology for commissioning of a system or a drone that enables you to visual map, to carry out visual mapping of projects. So we have connectivity and interfacing of objects, and objects that cost less at the moment and are supported by now mature technologies. We could talk about big data and other systems. There is a lot of enabling technology which is available now, but we will explain it later. What is important is that you are able to use all these wealth of things with an entrepreneurial approach, organizing things, and with the vision of change or considering change. Why am I saying this? Because 75% of large-scale digital transformation projects do not work. So probably we should understand what the unkept expectations, unfulfilled expectations are. So, and we will discuss this during the roundtable discussion. So what are the false myths then? And how can we ensure that digital transformation actually works? So 80% of players in the petrochemical industry have launched digital transformation projects. So, well, there is, everybody's doing something. So let's remember, I'm talking about referring to a service carried out by BCG. The system construction sector has not increased the productivity over the last 30 years. One of the few ones, if you look at the automotive sector and other industrial sectors, it has happened. So they have increased productivity. We have not in our industry increased productivity for many reasons. So now there is 30% of 30% of productivity recovery. So we have value, there is value to create. So the 80% of companies, well, are launching such projects, and it's good that they are doing so. What is the problem then? Well, we should understand how to tap the value which is there, trying and make things happen, and this is what is important. So another concept is important. We should experience digitization, and you see the diamond symbol, as if it were a new strategy. Generally, strategies imply being a cost leader, so being able to cost less than the others, or differentiating one's offering so as to get a price premium. So this, we want to be cost leaders in cost, and we want to differentiate ourselves at the same time through digitization, so as to revise production processes while differentiating ourselves. So being distinctive as Europeans and costing less as Far East companies. So those who, so we are doers because we build things. If we differentiate between dreamers and doers, then the dreamer is the person, the technology fan, those who install the Maire at home, and doers are those who make things happen. So those who build plants in the desert in Siberia, so they are not techno fans. They have to be very careful what they do, because when they take home a project for a value of 200 billion or million euros, then you have to make things happen. Doers have to be very practical. So over the decades, because these are companies which have been on the market for many years, many decades, so these companies have to be very practical, very down to earth. So digital transformation, our digital transformation is the digital transformation implemented by doers, not following passing fads, but implemented by people who build things, starting from scratch, build things, assembling kilometers of pipes, compressors. So people who tend to embrace innovation by making things happen. If we embrace a digital solution, then we do it as doers would do it. So this is the first differentiation between dreamers and doers. So we have been doers for the last 100 years. So another important thing in order to make digital transformation work is understanding that if I have an innovative solution, but if I'm not able to convince my suppliers or the customers who will pay for this, the solution will never turn into reality, will never become something, will never make things happen. The real the digitization and transformation work fails if you do not consider that you have to convince compressor suppliers, for example, who have to put a sensor on the compressor, or convince a company such as ours that has to assemble the compressor in a different system, and the client so that he accepts working with a different compressor. So digitization should be considered as an industry issue. So it is not just one person or one entity that has to change things. So you need doers and you need people who are able to grasp the cross-sectoral value and impact of all this. So this is why being able to organize things is important. And then a third factor is this, the value of the technology per se, which is very high, has to consider also in terms of TCO, total cost of ownership. So customers want to spend as little as possible, so sometimes they choose a Chinese supplier because the system costs or the plan costs less, because they provide low cost iron, they pay people less. So we have today 20,000 people working for us, building a plant, and they have to sleep, to drink, to eat. So we start as losers. So we are developing a TCO concept, because we go to the customer and tell them, I can put a technology layer on top of the plant that will enable you to decrease your costs over the entire life cycle of the plant. So we tell the customers, consider our solution, the Maire Tecnimont solution, because our plant is optimized from a CapEx viewpoint, but from the point of view of operating expenses, will certainly cost less over the entire life cycle. If you consider the MPV of my proposition, then you will see that I'm more competitive. My offer is more competitive. So technology has to be considered, seen as a tool that can change the competitiveness of a company such as ours, and can lead customers to consider the cost of the management of the plant over the entire life cycle of the plant. So our product, our plant, the Italian, the European plant, has a total cost of ownership which is lower, because it is it contains a different technology So this is what our approach when we want to convince customers to take risks, technology risks. So to summarize, we feel we are orchestrators, organizers, and Giovanni has already introduced this, because we can differentiate between myths and false myths, because we can make things happen, because we've made many things happen over time. We're good at this, and then we are an unbiased ecosystem. So Siemens is the same as BP for us. Honeywell is the same as another supplier, technology supplier. What we can bring, we can provide is the ability to orchestrate, organize this technology solution, and ensure, guarantee a total cost of ownership for our customers. So a plant of this type, put in place by a doer, will certainly contribute to lower the TCO for customers. This is what we are trying to do. So Maire Tecnimont is technology neutral. We do not fall in love with brands. We are orchestrators of this possibility of making the most of the value which is there for the whole supply chain. So a plant is made up of machines, rotating and static ones. These are detailed ancillaries, pipes, wires, people assembling the systems, a lot of logistics. All these things are connected and connected by an ICT layer. So on top of this, if you could see how we design plants, there is a lot of IT, so control systems, or the system that make these machines, components function so that the product is compliant with certain specifications and certain consumption requirements. So now our sector stops here. So we integrate a series of machines, hundreds of millions of machine value, kilometers of pipes and wires, and a lot of IT content, so that these machines produce what they have to produce, diesel fuel, propylene, whatever. So there are objects which are on top of the plants, which create historical data, and there is data is oil in the third millennium. So they create an avatar of the plant based on this historical data. So what we have called digital twin, and this avatar, plant avatar, can be a digital copy that you can try running optimizations. So for example, let's say I want to decrease by 1 degree the temperature of the furnace. What can I do? If you do so, you can maybe improve the profitability of the plant. So this is what is on top of engineering, and allows customers to create value. So the distinctiveness, total cost of ownership, is generated if you can get hold of these other bricks, avoiding that those who look at the sector from the point of view of data and artificial intelligence can take care of data, because once you produce historical data, then this data can be subject to artificial intelligence. So there is a world which stores from data and gets into the industry today. Now we're talking about a company starting from the hardware, going up towards data. So we'd like to cover this first part today. We will get to digital tools, and then through open innovation approaches, we will work with those who provide artificial intelligence, analytics, considering that if you bring IT into the plants, there is a lot of value to create. I'd like to introduce the third topic, that is change. And how can you change behaviors, which is the most difficult things, the most difficult challenge for managers. So in order to do this, you have to be able to influence, to make things happen, so you have to influence behaviors. So we have talked about entrepreneurship, the orchestration skills, and the change, I agree with you, must be a bottom-up change movement. So we have made an effort to engage all our colleagues in idea generation and the implementation, application of all these ideas. This is a very nice exercise in an engineering company, because engineers are, by definition, intellectually sophisticated. They like facing challenges. They faced the first challenge when they enrolled for the engineering course at university. So when you talk in interface with this audience, then you stimulate interest. So the ability of stimulating a change from the bottom in an engineering company works perfectly well. So we have engaged our best people, and I'll tell you how. We have redesigned processes, because we said digitization is an incredible opportunity to streamline companies and redesign the way these companies work. So it is the real, what is new is the redesign of processes, and then we have, impacted the organization apart, we have done this. We have involved digital catalysts. We asked within the company who wanted to become like ambassadors of these projects. You know that all learning curves go through enablers, so the pushers, the early adopters, those who push now they are called digital catalysts. So the first part of the curve, is the part where you need more enthusiasm. So we have launched digital pills. We have just started. Now we are involving 6,500 people, sending them pills, explaining what we are doing. We we start with the digital catalysts, and then we inform the people through these pills. Now we will launch the first town hall, which is a constant means to inform everybody periodically. So there will be a time where through all pieces within the company, we will explain how we are progressing in this project, and we will ask them people to interact. And there will be, the first one will be held, the first town hall will be held today. We will talk periodically with people, with these people, so that we can engage people, that we can use for change starting from the bottom, the intelligence of our engineers. So these are the words which have our people have suggested. You see, survival, digitization to survive, skills, sharing, human. This is a map of the things our colleagues have already told us. But what is the rationale of skills evolution in a company that wants to transform? So we will not just rely on Scrum Masters, we will not just hire Scrum Masters or data scientists and so on and so forth. It is not only just hiring these people who have these competencies, these skills. It is a matter of evolving 2,000 resources, people. So we will have to hire the data scientists, the people with data science skills we don't have, and then we have to spread all these, involving all of our resources. And then these competences can be developed also through acquisitions. Protomation, for example, it is a Dutch company. They write code. It is a software house. They write the code that will be put on top of our plants, of our systems, and that will allow us to go towards data management and artificial intelligence. The thing is, we don't want just to hire data experts. So we want to use an acquisition as the first step of a process that will enable us to engage with over 6,000 qualified, skilled partners. So it is a horizontal process. It's not just something we want to buy and to use just for our own purposes. So we want to tap on the market, and we are acquiring competencies in this way. We are hiring key people so as to contaminate the others. We are acquiring companies so that we can learn how to use better a sector such as industrial IT. Our approach starts from an analysis, evaluation on advantages. So if you're a doer, you do not do something new just because you have to. You do it if there is a payback, so a return. So our digital effort will start from a genuine attempt at making money from this. So it is nothing wrong. So new way of working. It means a new way of managing our processes. So there will be a project that will be introduced so as to decrease the cost of what we normally do. We will try and make paper disappear. So we'll try and eliminate some aspects. And then the third characteristic of our effort will be that of increasing our product offering. So we will focus on the internal processes, but we also want to expand the product offering to be able to offer more products. So it's a way of going beyond our comfort zone, trying and explain to customers that if they let us orchestrate their plant, their total cost of ownership will decrease. And so they will look at customers, will look at our final price for a project from the point of view of OPEX and CAPEX. So we are investing significant amounts. We have allocated in our business plan we have allocated some financial resources, so there is an economic and financial dimension to this effort. And this investment effort, will repay itself over 12 to 24 months. So we are talking about a return time between 12 and 24 months. Time of return. So I think there is value we can really make the most of. So the 30% the industry has lost can be addressed, can be recovered. And these figures are not the result of a top-down survey carried out with BCG. It is the summation of the 50 initiatives we have launched. We have 50 team groups, 50 colleagues, 50 names, 50 colleagues who over the next 24 months will have the possibility of using what we have invested and create a return. I hope I have made a connection with the concept of entrepreneurship, this bottom-up change coming from the bottom, and orchestration ability. Thank you very much for your attention.
Grazie mille, Pierroberto.
Thank you so much, Pierroberto, for taking us into the depth of the ongoing change, how this basic, plant engineering is moving up towards a new way of working, a new paradigm, and how much this takes up resources, reviewing, revising, a lot of communication, and it's a major challenge. As a fil rouge, we have repeatedly heard this dialogue between the university and corporates. It is a powerful synergy. Well, even more now, the new frontier of innovation is a digitization, which can be best told by Andrea Principe, the rector of Lewis University.
Bene, grazie, buongiorno a tutti.
Thank you very much, and good morning to you too. I feel honored with being here and being part of this major event. Thank you, Fabrizio Di Amato. Every time we meet, and recently we have met up systematically, we haven't known each other for a long time, but guess what? We share so many things, ideas, methods, approaches, even ambitions, I have to say, admittedly. But there's one thing at the roots of this friendly, dimension with Fabrizio. With Fabrizio, I share certain values, basically. This is it, because this is what then leads on to projects, designs, behaviors, and obviously ambitions. So I really wish to thank Fabrizio for this friendship that is growing and has been, created not long ago. I'm smiling because I don't know, but I feel like everything is perfect over the contents of this very interesting morning session, morning event. Fabrizio first, and then Cattaneo, the counselor, and then our CEO. They all talked about the future. Fabrizio's words pointed to his capacity of visioning, as he said. Fabrizio has and still is a future maker, to use an academic wording. He has constructed the future, going back to Pier Roberto Foggero of Dreamer and Doer. Fabrizio is one of the few people who can bring together being a dreamer, but, standing with your feet firmly on the ground. A twofold soul. So Fabrizio has pointed to the future. I was very pleased with hearing Mr. Cattaneo, the counselor, and his words. What a surprise! He mentioned the planning into the year 2050, and I was impressed. 2 times I heard this. First time I heard this was 2 years ago by Jack Ma, the owner of Alibaba. One of his managers, the HR head global of Alibaba, 2 years ago, we met at the Lewis University. He was telling me that he was just back, from the United States and met Jack Ma and the other execs of Alibaba. And Jack Ma had, was sitting at an oval table and, asked to him, what is our view? How do we see ourselves projected into the 2050? CEO Malagò, President Malagò talked about the future, the president of CONI. We have projected things into, he said, 2026. Thank you, Roberto, because you have described the strategy of Maire Tecnimont. So future, present, and I should, as a result, speak of the past. I'm an academic person, so I think that this is pretty much reflecting my role, after all. So how can I talk to you, about the past? Let me start with a first question, although this is not going to be the roundtable. But last week, I was reading in the New York Times about a research just came out on the attention threshold, which we have, our own threshold of attention. Do you know what is the attention span, as they say, or length, as they say? For how long can we still be on one single task and be attentive? Do you know what is the attention span? 8 seconds, that's the attention span. Well, you know, in the next 10 minutes from now, for the next 10 minutes, I'm sure that we will all have touched at least once our iPhone or cell phone for 5 or 6 times a minute, unless I'm so good at keeping you stuck, you know, on the attention level. It's a challenge between me and the digital world, if you want. Why am I speaking of the attention span? If I were to project you into the future, I'd like to only focus on one concept, an interface, an interaction. The interface is between man and machine. I take it that if we really want to leverage the potential, you know, talked about by Pierre Roberto, of the digital world, and we really want to drive digital transformation, digital disruption, we must understand much better and manage the interaction between a man and machine. Yeah, I mean, it sounds simple, but it would really require a lot of time, in fact. Yeah, I want to change my slide. Only images, concepts. I have only pictures. I don't have any numbers, nothing, you know, deeply academic. But I think it's worth to identify, you know, what do we mean by digitization? We are no longer talking of digital automation. It was way back in the 70s. Computers have taken the place of a few tasks that is relatively simple. Somebody called this robotization. Well, we speak of a digital transformation. What does that mean? It means that digitization is dramatically disrupting, changing, if you wish, our behaviors, our attitudes. There's an echo. Well, digital twin. It is changing the way organizations, corporations are doing business. Basically, digitization is redefining, recreating new roles, disrupting others in a few cases. Like any other technological revolution, as we know, professions at a certain time have been or are going to be pushed aside. Lampionaio and scrivano, for our friends who do not speak Italian, he's curious to see how we will translate these two words. But anyway, let me go back to a human interface. We need to understand much better the interface between man and machine. Let me take you through history to understand how this evolution has changed. This interaction has deeply changed or got discontinued, creating problems. Or as I said, talking about the attention span, if something has ever really, truly changed in our way of looking at technology and thinking in general. Let me start from this image back to a few centuries ago. We all remember that in 1800, the Luddists reacted inappropriately in a clashing way with machines. The monks already reacted pretty bad to the introduction of the early machines, printing machines. So at the beginning, the interaction with the machines was pretty bad, you know. Then this interaction changed and evolved into becoming into becoming something more passive, an adaptation which was passive. Taylor's used to say, he tried to design our movements, our human behaviors. You may remember that we try to adapt our motions, our movements to that of machines, which was used by Taylor and then implemented by Ford and represented in modern times by Charlie Chaplin. I fast forward another 100 years, and then I get finally into from a passive kind of adaptation to a man-machine relationship. Why relationship? I'd like to go back to a very interesting concept way in the 80s called the paradox of productivity. Many consultants and academics could not understand why companies would heavily invest in the IT of, once upon a time, but like Bonsolov said, there are computers everywhere except in the statistics of productivity. Nobody could understand why that was like this. Luca may say more about this, but actually a few academics started to say that the inertia of human change is dramatically different from the inertia of a technological or mechanical change. We are misaligned, in a word, over the speed produced by technology. If there is this mismatch and disalignment in the speed of change, automatically the investment made in IT back in the 80s it could not be picked up by statistics. So why are we reporting this much more? Why are we seeing it? Although it is still a paradox. Well, we are seeing more of this because the interface between a man and machine has changed away from a relationship onto a relation. Why? Well, think about it. Up until recently, IT was not taking us back home. Far from it. What it was a typical way to characterize our work site. Now it's become a relation. I pretend being a runner, and every morning when I run, I have my iPhone, which should measure and count kilometers, miles, you name it, and measure my speed. But I also wear a watch, a smartphone, a smartwatch that measures speed as well, and my heartbeats. So basically, I live with technology in a systematic way. I mean, day in, day out. I have a systematic relationship that goes well beyond the relationship that was depicted in my behavior 10 years ago, way back. So the report has become in relationship. We trust machines. This is a fact. Our rapport, our interaction with technology now is getting close to being a friendship, quite friendly, smoother. So at this point, how can I fully capitalize or leverage technologies if I live with them, I can do this, and I'll offer you, two elements to close my brief address. I can do this by, one, redefining, as digital is redefining everything, but also redefining the training courses of our future graduates, our students. You see a T? For those who can see the T, but not everybody can. The T is what some scholars have used to represent the shape of skills of young graduates in various industries. Why T? Why T? The T-shaped professional. Because the vertical dimension stands for the specialized skill or competence of a professional, be it an engineer, economist, IT man. I mean, there is disciplines, there is profession, but the horizontal axis shows a number, a cluster of micro skills, micro competencies, which are needed, in fact, to collaborate within an organization, and micro skills, micro competencies that are of various nature and different from the vertical ones. What does that mean? That in order to cope with and address the problems imposed by technology and any other kind of problem, I cannot be monodisciplinary, just an engineer, just an economist. I need to acquire many more families or subsets of skills to understand smartly, what other experts are saying and to interact with them to get the best out of them. But this is not the end of it. The number of skills that should help us to better exploit the potential of digitization. If it's true, as it is, that digitization is now pervasive across our lives, I no longer need simply a T, because future professionals and managers will have to be, there's no doubt in my mind about this, a strongly specialized but also generalist, a general knowledge. I mean, the students from Lewis are specialized generalists, an oxymoron. They need to have vertical competencies but also horizontal skills at the same time. But it's still not enough, believe me, because digitization is so, strong and pervasive that I need a specific competence, also a specific skill to be able to smartly interact with smart machines and experts alike. So I'm moving from T onto Greek P Greco. If I don't do this, I wouldn't be able to exploit at full the potential. Greek pi. So collaboration has to be set with the machine, from a conflictual relationship to a passive adaptation to a rapport to a relationship, all the way up to becoming a true collaboration. Let me close on a metaphor. I, wanted to do something similar to the truffle, but with innovation. There is a similar one, too similar. Let me launch another metaphor as a provocation, if I may. If it's true that we need to be both doers but also dreamers, if it's true that digitization offers so many spaces and opportunities, equally true is that to build what Fabrizio, described as road maps, and this is my bias as an academic, well, we need to deliver to students, our students, not new roadmaps. It would be impossible to build them, now for the year 2050. We need to teach our students to self-create compasses. They should understand how to become compass makers. It's only with a compass that you can, find your way in an increasingly uncertain context. It's so difficult to capture with matrices that have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paradigms, which means also, setting aside certain categories that have been existing so far. And I'm very, very happy to just say that Maire Tecnimont will stand for this, and not only now, but very much so in the future. Thank you.
Grazie mille Andrea Principe per questo
Thank you so much.
intensissimo attraverso tutto.
Thank you for going through quickly all these steps, all these images, which have led us from the beginning of this evolution until now. Let's now start our roundtable discussion So we have here Francesco Guidara from Boston Consulting and Luca Solara, University of Milan. They will facilitate this open discussion with our guests. So, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the overview, for the general picture you have provided. So what is the purpose of this roundtable discussion? We want to understand what is happening also in other industries, other contexts, as to the, especially with reference to the effectiveness of the digital trends. And so we have here Alvise Biffi, Fausto Ghiringhelli, Giovanni Sale, Tone Cutti. Welcome.
Allora, c'è anche un ruolo vostro.
You have a role as well. I'm talking to the audience because we want to listen to their experiences and understand whether all that we have heard can be applied, but we also want to listen to your viewpoint. How do we want to do this? We want to use an application. There are two ways to interact. You will interact using your mobile phone. So there is a place where you can go and you see the address votebcg.com, or you can log in with this onto this app. We can test this application. So with the first question, from your point of view, let's talk about Italy. From your point of view, what is the social media platform which is most widely used? WhatsApp, Facebook, or YouTube? We have opened the vote. You will enter your code, MET, and you can vote. If you have problems, since this is sort of warm-up phase, please raise your hand or signal somebody. What is your viewpoint? But don't say it loud so as not to influence the vote. I'm looking at the engineers who understand when we can say the vote has been closed, the voting phase. So there are voters, 42. A few more seconds. So we have reached a significant number. 78. Let's see what your perception is. Well, congratulations. So we were wrong. What do I mean? So a small number of us, and I would have said the same, WhatsApp. So voted WhatsApp, it is not. It is YouTube. It is the most widely used social media platform. So you see the percentages for WhatsApp, and the WhatsApp data is around 88%. WhatsApp and Facebook are more limited in terms of use. However, the most widely used is YouTube. So, well, going back to what Andrea was saying, the difference is among the three is the ability to attract attention and keep the attention of the users. So YouTube manages, it succeeds in keeping, in attracting and keeping people focused for a longer period of time. So this is why it has a greater impact. So we know that YouTube is market leader in terms of views. So let's start right away with what also Pier Umberto had mentioned earlier. So there are some statements which are widespread, and let's see whether they correspond to reality. They are they are true. The digital transformation. has it strengthened productivity? This is the question we will soon ask our audience, and we will discuss this question before voting. You will have to vote choosing one of these answers. Between 2010 and 2018, in your opinion, has productivity, what was the level of productivity? 4.3, 0.9, 1.8? And there is one more piece of information we are giving you. Between 70 and 79 was 1.7%. Let's wait a few more minutes and let's see whether the increase was 4.3, 0.9 or 1.8%. ABC. So this is the, well, result. So we were right also because we had already so we'd listened to the opinions of the previous speakers. So 0.9% is what we said, and it is also the official data. So did you expect the contribution of digital wave to productivity to be so low? Well, all economists are wondering where the impact of, well, the digital impact is on productivity. So the promises in terms of growth and development have distributed in an unfair way. So what has happened is this. This is so all organizations have experienced this low increase in productivity. Only few of them, those which are called frontier companies, all the players which within various industries and within various countries which are positioned in the top segment of the market. So frontier companies have seen sizable productivity increases, but the same has not happened along the entire supply chain or has not spread to the entire economic system. So we are in Italy, although we have several foreign guests. This process has been particularly marked in Italy. So the difficulty in terms of transition between, so the difference between the results achieved by frontier and non-frontier companies is quite big. There is a big gap. Well, and the first thing has to do with inertia, not only human inertia, but also the inertia of organizational models. We have organizations, models, which have been based historically on a type of information transfer that was mainly based on paper. We also have management and leadership models, which are based on site control, site checks, or based on frequent relations or relational frequency. So the Washington Post published an article on a survey the Computer International Literacy Association carried out in 2018, and it disproves a myth that is the fact that this difficulty is generated by the fact that we, mostly over 40 years of age, are not digital natives. Though for those who were born starting from the mid-90s, only 2% of them, according to a survey carried out in 14 countries, it has a high level of, is highly skilled in computer use. Only the 14% is able to interact actively with the computer. So maybe we have a problem and we are the ones who can solve it. And Mr. Giringhelli, what is your opinion when you consider the 0.9% and then the difference between frontier and non-frontier organizations? Okay. Well, I think every industrial development evolution leads to similar results. If we analyze things historically, we analyze promises, the expectations, and the results achieved. But then, if we look at this slide, then we see that the most important piece of data is one that inspires which is inspiring, is that we have a blue curve. There is a fundamental aspect. So being, so if you are not a leader, if you're just trying to catch up, you lose the opportunity, miss the opportunity to increase productivity. I have a degree in labor organization, so I'm criticizing myself as well. We talk about liquid organizations and type A or type B, Y organization. This is meaningless. And I want to say something that can be perceived as trivial, but Professor Ginsberg said that probably the only meaningful organization is the adaptive organization. So the recipe, so the approach adopted by Maire Tecnimont to stay in the blue line is put into factor together. So the Maire Tecnimont is focusing on the how. So they are. What is important is that you have as a driver the economic value generated by the technologies you adopt, where technologies are not just commodities but are so pervasive that they allow you to choose. And then how technological choices are introduced within the organization through cooptation and engagement of everybody. Otherwise, the technological choice is not enough to really lead to an increase in productivity. Mr. Lusuriello, so can answer from any, can answer this question. Have you increased productivity and how long did it take? Well, it is a difficult exercise for sure. We really need to understand what digital transformation is. It is rather transformation in the way people work, skilled people work. So if we think of digital transformation in terms of technology, that is creating a more powerful machine and so on, well, we go back to this data. 1 year ago, just to tell you what our experience was in our industry, there are many others, of course, we decided to try and understand what the importance of these technologies, starting pilot projects, limited in size. When you have a developer's pilot project, what is the difficulty is to then go to the next step, the real project. So we tried and implement the same technologies in a production plant. After 1 year, we found out the following: 50% reduction of 50% in production costs, in design costs, then 40% increase in emissions, and a general improvement of parameters. I'm not a technologist. Over the last six years, I was in charge of any operations all over the world before starting this new job in this new position. So I visited once a plant, and I was talking with the plant manager, so with a lot of experience without a degree, and he made me understand that he had taken all the output of what had been developed, all predictive algorithm, improvement algorithms. So he had put it into a DCS, creating views, its own customized views, its own views, also trends we had never imagined, and this made him feel comfortable with the plant and the plant management. So technology has changed the way in which people work, and so I understood it at that time. So now people are not just waiting there and adopting reactive approaches. So that person, that plant manager, had developed a technology competence that had allowed him how to use technology to be proactive and not reactive. And then he had understood that he had to really start start managing this technology, and that the change, the technological change, was a way to enhance the work of the various resources. In this way, if the digital transformation is experienced in this way, then it can improve people's performance, and people know, well, and it is important that technology is something people feel responsible of. So we should probably cross out the word automatically. And then, second statement, something we have always heard: digital trends, digital transformation will in many ways enable more collaborative relationship between suppliers and companies along the value chain. So we have seen this. It is not always true, because the level of litigation because of digitization has increased, and significantly so. Going back to what Mr. Lutuliero was saying earlier, those who have tried and organized this experience with the digital trends in a different way has achieved higher results than expected. We have here the example of Boeing. What happened there? From an organizational viewpoint, Boeing introduced, was operating in also in a sector which was not felt as a totally controlled sector. So Boeing, thanks to technology, was able to reverse the pyramid, so that all those who have operational tasks and will have an impact on performance, suppliers, so nothing can be developed internally now. This is still possible for SMEs, probably, where, so it was, so they created a nexus of contact thanks to enabled by technology, and so that all 50 tier 1 suppliers are involved at the from the start of the design process, and so they were able to reverse the pyramid, and this is one of the features of the Scrum models. So try and involve all players that will have an impact right from the start of the project, even customers sometimes. So what we see here, what looks like an inability to recover transaction costs in the relationship between players can translate into a financial economic recovery, if you want. And if you think of the Boeing 737 MAX, will probably not be fully convinced, but clearly the ability of operational development proved here, demonstrated here, does not lead to the ability to eliminate risk altogether. So it is important, of course, to focus not only on macro processes, but also micro processes. You were talking about the 737, a terrible experience, and all the Financial Times published an article on Boeing and talking about the improvement Boeing has achieved in communicating with consumers as well. Mr. Sala, can you tell us about Maire Tecnimont's experience in terms of, with reference to the higher number of litigation and positive aspects, productivity improvements? Well, clearly, the market is not a walk in the park. We operate in various regions globally. We can confirm that customers have this attitude, this approach. However, talking about a digital transformation means referring to a whole entire ecosystem. So we want to involve our customers at an early stage, because we cannot just develop something digital with the customer for a customer that has not opened its own organization to the digital world. So we are negotiating, talking with several customers, thinking of starting their project with digital content embedded right from the start. We are some enablers who have created, developed our meta store, where all our apps reside, so that the customer can draw inspiration as to how to develop, how to do things internally. Well, as to productivity increases, internally we are seeing that people are working more, devoting more hours to digital projects, because people need to think in a different way. This is something we see every day. Internally, are we decreasing manpower, or we are increasing the need of resources? What we are moving is so what we are changing is at the level of inefficiencies. So 737 had problems with aircraft stability and fluid dynamics. Well, our digital transformation will go to countries where we have to manage 20,000, 26,000 people working in the plant who have practical problems. So our digitization, so starts at time zero when the project starts, so as to improve, to optimize, improve work on site. So productivity, so everything, productivity was measured against the Texas benchmark. Do you know, in the past, do you know how much so what is productivity there in the Gulf Coast? It is 3. It has a value of 3. So 300% of productivity has gone to waste, so has been erased in the most productive areas in the US, in the world, and so many companies have failed in increasing productivity. They have destroyed their investment because they have not checked some aspect, grounding. So we have to introduce a digital approach. Of course, we have to be perfect in flow dynamics, but we have to use the technology so as to be able to build in the safest and most efficient way. Think of the US today, you would have 300% of productivity to recover in the Gulf Coast.
Mr. Losuriello, what does a client expect from these contractors? EPC, yeah. I'd like to divide this up in two stages. Construction phase, well, you can improve on costs, timing. That's very good, you know, a collaborative platform. I was very much impressed with the fact that you have to think about the lead time, the whole life cycle of the EPC. I think that increasingly for a client, the construction engineering stage may last 2, 3, 4 years. This is when we spend. Then we have to recover over the following 30 years or so. This has to be regarded as a judgment metrics of the construction phase. So I agree. No, getting into the digital twin is okay. Analytics, AI on it are being enabled by data, and the more delay I have in collecting the data, and the greater the delay of any AI solution. So this is a direction which is extremely important, being taken by Maire, Tecnimont, and I'm sure that all clients are very interested in this. So again, in a useless adverb, which regards the spirit of teamwork and collaboration in a digital form. The third statement of the 5, which we have picked up and decided to discuss, is this startup. Digital. We always heard digital will be an extraordinary lever for the startup ecosystem worlds. If you go out and look at the platforms, one thing that impresses you is physical data. In Uber, Alibaba, BNB, the physical is now more distant as a concept than what it used to be. So we have another question for you right now, which is, what is the impact that digital had in creating and supporting a startup ecosystem? Give us the percentage. What is the startup percentage that in the first 8 years will go bankrupt and fail? Not that they don't manage to become a unicorn, but they can't stay on the market. 32%, only 6.5% will get there. 45%, half, or 67%. Give us your vote. Thanks.
Allora, guardo sempre Paolo dalla regia.
Looking at Paolo to get the green light. When can I start? Okay, your answers, your vote, well, you know, we can't cheat on you anymore. Green, which means that in this room, and, you know, so sorry, we don't know what the other people connected on the wired platform are voting. This is something that we cannot find out for now. So it is true. The large majority of startups after 8 years cannot survive. Confindustria, Alvise Biffi is responsible exactly for this for small firms. You made a point. I have 8 seconds not to lose the attention span. Let me divide the two models. You have a disruption model to start with, which is the model we saw about the new large digital multinationals. It is a violent, bewildering, impressive model which is not integrated into the system. It wants to replace it and surpass it. This is not an Italian model. We don't have any disruptive examples doing this. Then there's a second model that are trying to beat disruption. Again, it's open innovation multinationals. As was indicated before by the CEO, it means going out and taking value added inside your own company, not necessarily in internal R&D, but out on the market to keep and get different skills, competencies, market speeds, which in a complex organization, be it small or big, creates a very strong timing restraints. As Confindustria, we have seen that in Italy, what Tecnimont, Maire Tecnimont is doing is largely shared. If we take the 10,000 startups in the Italian disruptive startup list, the corporates, small and big, have invested nearly $500 million into these 10,000 innovative, disruptive startups, much more than the venture capitalists or traditional institutions or private equity institutional funds. They only invested 190 million into these startups. The other thing is that 43% of these corporates investing $500 million are small and medium-sized companies, businesses. So don't think of a corporate venture, large multinationals, but it's a cross-sectional decision, you know, very much what Maire Tecnimont is doing. There's a crossroad between the type of investing company. If you invest, you do not invest in one single startup. Usually these people would invest in 4 different startups with a clear-cut strategy and not by just, you know, testing out. This is not a speculative investment, you know, to get an economic return, but it's made to integrate the value chain. We have a small tradition, mechatronica. The hard costs may be a major restraint on global competition for Maire Tecnimont, and, you know, let alone for small and medium firms. So integrating digital and IT competencies, you know, what is most difficult to do is to change the people, given the change timing of technologies and other changes. And the other thing, which is extremely important, historically, we were learned to go to a company to learn, you know, throughout the Renaissance, it's been the case, but on new changes so fast that if you walk in a company on certain topics, you walk in the first time in a company already, you know, ready to teach, not to learn. And this is certainly disrupting. You know, I walk in, you know, I'm expecting to grow my career slowly, but this is not necessarily so. So, in a nutshell, this is the right direction, I think, because corporations have understood this change. It's 6,000 companies investing in open innovation, and what is needed now is a model. Many are looking after and you know, pursuing this trend instead of revising the business model by integrating the new skills, the new competencies already in the hard section to benefit from this. If you add pieces, nothing will come because things have to be revised from the start. But the model is there. I mean, the companies are working well with excellent models, and this is a undeniable example. Thank you. Giovanni Sale. Let me ask you the same question. You've anticipated the relationship between large corporations and startups, but there's two interesting things that have struck me on the BCG analysis. 1% can grab the dream of then moving up to becoming a unicorn. So beyond 67%, it's quite difficult to make a difference with a startup. Second, the barriers into a full collaboration is a problem of culture, a cultural problem which remains very strong, in addition to the speed problem between a corporation and a startup. Giovanni Sala, in your experience of Maire Tecnimont, what has been the progress of this relationship? As we said at the start, we basically are orchestrators. We take our growth in our startups and companies. We must take growth from the outside and bring it into our country. We also have one of the champions in this. They are the largest players of our country. We need to take growth into inside our company. We are part of an ecosystem which supposedly should create more efficiency and add value over the 20 years of the investment, either in remote areas or in the United States and Nigeria, Vietnam, or Indonesia, and the greatest countries of the world. We have a vision. We have created an incubator where we have put these ideas. The Maire App Store is an incubator of new ideas, of a lot of progress. But the district around us, surrounding us, should adapt to this. So we are making an attempt at trying to get all of our stakeholders and vendors into this digital district. This is the kind of district I'm talking about, to create all together and with them the large infrastructure in the future in the United States, in Vietnam, in Indonesia, and hopefully in Italy. A new infrastructure has been created. And to do that, we will have to spend from within and create this new relationship. So I'm appealing to and calling to the new country to learn how to think differently. If we could make it, we will remain competitive. If we don't do this, we will probably find other companies like Samsung, its electronics industry and infrastructure, that will beat us. I mean, the United States has also its dynamics. The Russians are also creating their infrastructure. Well, beware, we need to be fast from the academic world to the organizations and the champions of our world. They should all move fast. Otherwise, we will miss out on this train of digitization. Although we may have an incubator, but we need to have the digital district, which is needed for this. Luca, 2 comments. Let's stop being concerned about unicorns, especially in a country where the core theme is corporate venture, an investment aimed at consolidated results in a pre-existing business model. Our goal is not necessarily that of having unicorn champions. The Silicon Valley, for instance, may I say so, is one of the most topical item of discussion, is moving to unicorns, to zebras. Unicorns are very complex and difficult to manage because of the consequences they may have on the expanded ecosystem. So different models, our country should carry and have growth, but it cannot work on the deflation of other businesses and industries, as was the case for the Silicon Valley people. So that driven has to be modified. We got everything wrong exactly. Let's see if we can get wrong the next one. It's a traditional classic topic, societalization. Can we speak of a one-fits-all model for the digital? Luca Solari, your answer. 2 experiences you have on this statement. Yes. after the initial euphoria, everybody had to have a separate company for the digital. That was the beginning. Now that was the legacy of a certain literature of innovation in the 70s and 80s, where innovation was spoken about in a different way. This is innovation like electricity, micro-founded, something that affects all we do. It's something that is really challenging a number of principles that we have built our business models on, and slowly but surely it will move up back to the surface. Now, to use it well, we need to go to that operator that builds his own tool, as Lusuriello said. Well, there's many examples, but I decided to pick only two. Quite safe, quite far from our country. One is for smart mobility. In 2014, Ford decided that the future would have been mobility, about mobility. We all wake up in the morning and we discover that our neighbors have been buying a new technology, so we knew we need to do the same, running after them. You know, the key is to get the right ones since the start. Big investment creating, setting up a separate standalone unit, again, not to be corrupted by daily business activities. And the outcome is an organization which is moving completely separate from the rest of the business. A lack of understanding as to how to integrate all solutions in daily activities. So Ford, in other words, that rapidly, quickly has to go back, walk back up. Then we have P&G on the other side, obsessed with these OKRs, these terrible, tremendous objectives. They're saying, we are not happy with investing in digital alone, and we must become the most digital organization of the universe, of the world. P&G, big company, big organization, for us a great example of innovation, disruption, and organization development, investing heavily on the digital, except that they realized that there was a basic problem. Digitizing what we do better through traditional and standard processes doesn't make a lot of sense. We could have been avatarized as well. People may have been happy with this, but then without any benefit, because the contents then should have been given by humans anyway. Two interesting examples, and may I afford one additional comment? I hope Andrea, as a rep of the academic world, will support this. Well, we knew these things since the start. We knew that this societization was a very odd idea. The Stanford Innovation Center had already published a wonderful investigation on the opportunity of hybrid strategies and adopting these hybrid strategies. Dreamers, God forbid, let's, leave them alone in a different world. We'll continue to produce something that is useful. Very interesting. Marco Tonegutti, may I ask you, the BCG approach to innovation, you have a global experience as a European head of these practices. What have you seen? Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, we saw it a couple of slides ago. So there is no single solution for different situations. So we have assisted customers in situations where the fact of having a separate business unit or even a separate company can be useful, especially in order to disrupt. Well, one example in the oil and gas industry is Shell. They introduced some startups in the commercial world. One is Machine Max, very successful. What does it do? It sells lubricants in a completely different way than the traditional model. So they are not just selling product, they are selling the effect of the product on the machines or the engines or the machines of the cranes and tractors of customers. And they did that using a separate model because they don't want to mix it with the traditional organization and the traditional way of selling lubricants, because they are selling something different. They are selling availability, performance, impact, and not just the product, the physical product. This recipe, this solution, in our experience, has that is separated the digital aspects from the real business is not working. When we talk about core business, industrial processes, other oil and gas companies which have applied a new type of new model for on core processes using a separate structure have failed completely. BCG has had a different experience with a petrochemical player in Southeast Asia, so a potential customers of yours. They have refineries operating the petrochemical industry in that area. They decided to launch digital transformation 3 years ago, and one of the main things they wanted to do is to introduce in every type of operation, supply chain processes, maintenance, and so on, a digital organizational responsibility without any separation of. And they have had an important impact, a significant impact on the EBITDA, 150 million euros a year of impact. So very value-driven digital transformation. Mr. Biffi, these mistakes mentioned by Marco, made by Procter & Gamble, for example, do you see any such mistakes in Italy or in companies with different sizes, of course? So the problem occurs when the company, instead of using information to create a startup process, starts to introduce this into or existing processes. So we have some examples which show that where you have innovation, free innovation with internal contamination, so as to revise the business model based on the digital trend, then you have good results. If you try and introduce innovation into an existing traditional organizational model, then you limit the potential of innovation, and the results have not been successful, good. And this is something that both large-sized and small-sized companies have experienced. So what is important is that you have the vision, that you're smart enough to have the startup contaminate you, innovation contaminate you, maybe reinventing this, reinterpreting this through based on the experience of the company without harness. So just using, letting innovation go its own way without hampering or limiting it. So out of innovative startups in Italy have 1 billion turnover, and they are most of it is are funded by corporations, and one of them has been listed on the Canadian Stock Exchange. So it is true. So from the point of view of an investment viewpoint, those who adopt this as systematically then have good results. So one last statement, because it links us to the world of people, digital and people. First of all, let's say there is no one-size-fits-all organizational approach. So the question is, have digital contents massively automated the workforce? Is it true? What is the impact it has had over the years? So we have some interesting things here. I'd like Luca to comment the forecast until 2030, the chart on the left-hand side. Why is this particularly surprising and also encouraging? Well, we tend to be a bit puzzled when faced with technology displacement. So we are still thinking that some robots will take our place. Some people believe in parallel cults, like Singularity, for example. And well, which is so. This result is not surprising to me because of several reasons. Apart from fears and projections, we are already changing our habits because of technology. I am thinking of my students, how they write their essays, how I write my articles. I'm not copying anything, plagiarizing anything, but I use tools that allow me to write everything, and when I have to include bibliography, I use tools. Some of them are free, freely available, and I just include bibliography easily. And there is an interesting piece of information. A recent survey carried out in April 2019 by IBM together with IBM, which is considering tasks, the things we do when we work between 2010 and 2017, the most easily automated tasks, so the basic ones. Only 3% of them were lost, so something visible. So we could say, so should we not be worried? Well, yes and no, because it is true that today 90% of jobs, according to a survey carried out on behalf of the European Commission, that jobs that need technical skills. It is true that over the next 10 years, over 60 million people in Europe will be underskilled. So it is possible that those skills will not necessarily be STEM skills or data analytics, or maybe other things. All this interaction between man and computers, we tend to neglect this, will be very important for those who focus on organization. Those who are studying this interaction today know that we have a problem. That is the reaction, the preoccupation that we feel when we have to do with something that follows different logics than ours. So when we talk in the morning with Siri or Alexa, will ask questions, and we will wonder who is actually answering our questions on the other end. So Pier Alberto Folgeri had anticipated your point of view, but as a person in charge of human resources, how is Maire? Can you tell us how Maire is approaching this? So we started from a catastrophic perspective. So we thought that technology would disrupt everything, and now we are seeing something different. So Maire Tecnimont is a doer. We are optimistic because so it is so by definition. So we have to consider how this digital revolution will lead to inclusive and not exclusive phenomena. My opinion, digital revolution will introduce new new jobs. Not many. The figures will be negligible within organizations, and reskilling. Then reskilling will impact, on the other hand, wider, bigger numbers. Of course, higher, computing power will increase, so people will have more time to do other things. So I believe that new opportunities will open up, and we should not define this as downscaling, but we should consider new skills, triggered by the interaction between man and machines. Let's think of the possibility of virtualizing some processes that can be managed remotely. This can be an opportunity for some areas of the population that would otherwise can be considered as excluded from the system. For Maire Tecnimont, this is a very good opportunity. Digital transformation will impact around 6,500 employees, colleagues. They will be involved in this extraordinary experience where we will eliminate talent management, word which is I never liked, and we will manage talent which is in 6,500 people, and these people, through digital transformation and through the tools that are being introduced, can make a big contribution. We have we are organizing a nomination for digital catalysts in Milan. In 5 days, we have received 57 applications, so 57 candidates. This wouldn't have been possible without digital transformation, and we have 57 ambassadors, potential ambassadors within the company, and many others will come. Mr. Zuliello, you were nodding when Mr. Ghiringhelli was speaking. Probably you have experienced something similar. When we say millions of people will be insufficiently skilled, we should not think that they are useless people. If tomorrow I filled my company with Scrum Masters, data engineers, and so on and so forth, I wouldn't know what to do with them, and they wouldn't know what to do in my company, so it would be a disaster. Well, the issue is different. We should fill this competence gap with the competencies which are needed in my company. Well, change management takes most of the time, so we should focus on people's competencies and skills, because based on their core competencies, they can develop the digital competencies that will enable them to change the way they work. And the combination of new competencies, data scientists, Scrum Master, and existing competencies is disrupting for both. So we found a way to innovate, because two people can work together, they are complementary. So this is where value is. Marco Toneguti, can you share a few your point of view on this? The real challenge is how to make the existing resources computer literate. So an example of upskilling is the following. If I want to convince a maintenance person of an hydrocracker to use machine learning for predictive maintenance, I have to explain to him what machine learning does, because he cannot become, he has to understand how the machine learning works before he relinquishes 30 years of experience. So this is example number one. and then upskilling. Now, reskilling. If I take a process engineer who has been working for 20, 30 years, has based his work on certain models based on differentials, and I want to convince him to adopt statistical methods, then it takes some time. So the real challenge in resources transformation is the time it takes and the efforts needed to go from pilot projects to scale initiatives. BCG has recently carried out a survey involving around 30,000 people, digital talents around the world. I'd like to share some figures that may be useful. Number one, attracting digital talents is not so easy, because traditional levers, let's say, such as position and reward, are not always winners. So they look at experience more, and they consider whether they can learn something or not, and they also consider work-life balance. Number two, digital talents are very mobile. So around 70% of these people, these talents, are ready to change, to move to another country if there is a better challenge there. And if we consider then Italy and Milan among the most attractive 10 most attractive cities for Italians, Milan is not included. There are 5 European cities, London, Paris, but then Amsterdam, Abu Dhabi, Dubai. So you see, this is a challenge, certainly. Mobility. I think that winning the skills, the skills challenge is what will allow us to increase productivity, as we were saying at the beginning of the roundtable. So we are now approaching to the end. Before handing over to Carlo and Mr. Foggero, Carlo, can you tell us, summarize the discussion? I would like to focus on 2 things. First of all, the return of structural contingencies. In the 1960s, we said that organizational structures varied according to the context, but then we had macro solutions. Now we have micro solutions. Those who, the decision makers, have to go where things happen. It is useless to start big initiatives for digital contents at macro level. For example, waste recycling in a city. The only way to understand what people need is having sending people working on those trucks to see what happens. And then the second aspect, and this has been made very clear by the contributors, is that we should not be afraid of technology. Technology has the dimensions, aspects that can enable different ways of working. Just to make an example, which is not so often told, collaborative robots, for example, in design and production, are very good to as a support for autistic or workers with autism spectrum disorders. So they can be used to implement organizations which are more socially responsible.
Grazie davvero, adesso ci avviamo.
Thank you very much for being with us. We're now coming to the close of this event. Carlo, the floor to you. Thank you. Thank you to everybody. I think that this roundtable was very rich in many insights. So thank you to you too for the patience and for final remarks, Piero Ruggero. Well, first, thank you very much for this roundtable. Not because we hosted it together with BCG. We have set up the format, but rarely can you provide so highly integrated contents at a roundtable. We were concerned with this. A roundtable may be a way to get many people speak at the same time, you know, poor kitchen or a cuisine. Our cuisine was like MasterChef. Every speech intervention was very perfectly well amalgamated and integrated, enriched in contents. Thank you very much, Andrea. Thank you for, you know, re-providing a balance, the cultural balance of my comments. You know, I have a form of corporate agonism or excitement. But your comments were extremely inspiring and not necessarily academic. A real inspiration. So the mission was met. The goal here was through this event, to explain what the false myths are, how a special company like Maire Tecnimont can be a reference for others. And the final, which came out wonderfully, and that per se is really, per se, a closing remark, is the concept of saying that for digitization to really create value, we have to get together, bring together various worlds, data engineering being the first one. The dominion of engineers is real life. Implementation, the bridge which wasn't there anymore, the oil that turns into value-added commodity at the end of the pipeline. If you are into data, you tend to have a statistic view of things in life. Data scientists are related to statisticians closely. So this vision about statistics sometimes has to be accepted by engineers that have to be hybridated. If he is exposed to an endless amount of data, he might come up with something that you have not been thinking about. This is the kind of hybridation that the engineers should be acquiring. You may know all kinds of molecules, also for an engineer. There is a recommendation, a modality to provide it to the plant that he would not be able to provide alone. So as you said, you know, you took technology, put it in the hands of a plant head, and he used that to amplify, to expand, to hybridate the results, to get the data expert to work with the refinery expert. Hybridation is also what I'm suggesting, recommended between the company and a startup. But we're lucky enough, because if we work with a small company, the major defensor of that entrepreneur is Fabrizio. Sometimes he would team up with the body of that company. The large company may flatten you out, you know, although unwillingly. It's as if something was, you know, a swallowing innovation. We went through that. I was pleased to hear the view of Confindustria. Well, the key we are now using is, you know, delete the idea of buying it. The first thing that a corporate should be doing, not to, you know, override, prevaricate, or to reassure the inventor, is, you know, cool down. I'll never buy you. I want to take what you have done, your visual mapping, beautiful, that I had never seen. I want to get it into the beam, what I'm doing, and go to a client and say, you know, soon we will take care of the last build of the projects with the visual mapping, because you have a stronger, more powerful visual mapping. I'm managing third millennium beam systems. If we work together, I will not buy you, be safe, you know, don't worry, no issues. We will share a model allowing the big one to industrialize and to use innovation for market purposes. So the hybridization, corporate and startup, is something which we don't know how to do it, and instinctively we do it badly. We have to learn how to do it. And from heavy comments, moving on to more cultural comments, hybridization with machines. Well, there again, if you can improve, increase, augment your capacities, and you experience the machine as an amplifier of your skills, that's the way you look upon a machine. You will no longer be afraid of it. And also another form of hybridization between a dreamer and a doer. Doer are cool, that's true. Doers are two philosophers, dreamers are two philosophers, but the two are all equally needed. Doers add more value to the visionary ideas of the others, of dreamers. All these hybridations we have tried to promote in our vision of Maire Tecnimont today, amplifying them emotionally as we like doing things. Because at the end of the day, there should be a bit of a thrill. You know, it's a gut emotion which creates talent. If you feel at risk, you secrete hormones which otherwise wouldn't be secreted. Well, that's good. Adrenaline is what gets the talent out of you. Talent is in each micro decisions to be made in business, in your venture ideas, in the micro moment that lies ahead whenever a business decision has to be made, which is also, you know, the final note to close on micro decisions. Some of these themes are being taken and are being investigated. So please do read our new journal. Thank you. Thank you very much.